Let's go, team. We're going to talk about all the legendary artifact or the legendary DPS artifacts in the game. Everything you can farm from the Harpy, which is really easy to do as free to play. We're going to talk about the 2-piece advantage, the 3-piece advantage, and what kind of damage you're going to get from that. What set do you really want to use? And if you just use a 2-piece set and then another 2-piece set, are you okay? Do you feel bad about doing that? Well, I've tested all the numbers. You can see all the different panels behind me going. Spent many hours testing different heroes with all the different gear so that we can get the actual numbers for it. And you can see what's going to work out best for you. Check this out first. We've got our guy over here hitting this boss for 10,000 additional damage. 2 times right there. He's got his little additional arrows that fly out if there's a frost debuff on the boss. And you see that 10,610? He's only hitting the boss for like 5,000, 2,000, but he's shooting out arrows that are hitting the boss for 10,000. Now, it does get lower as the boss's health gets lower. If their max HP gets lower, the actual proc for that additional damage is lower, because right now, where he's almost dead, is at 2,337. Still a lot of additional damage. When he's got legendary gear on, we're pumping out the attack, we're pumping out all the stats, and he's hitting for 7,000. He's going to crit, so he's always going to hit for 7,000 with that hit. But then in the back, you see that 2,337, which is massive, because in the beginning, from all the way to half-life, this guy is taking a hit of 10,000 additional damage twice there. I mean, damn. Our normal hit, we got a normal hit of 5,000, and then 7,000, 10,000, 2,000, 10,000. It's massive. All right, hopefully that got you excited to see what's going on. We're talking about these 4 sets. These are the sets you get from beating the Harpy, and then we'll talk about these other sets in another video. They're more of a protecting your team, getting additional HP, getting that accuracy, stunning people, and then giving your whole team, which I think is really cool, an extra 15% attack. So what if you had your whole team on this? Would this double up? Could we keep rotating through this? I don't know, but we're going to test it out. This 3-piece set on this one. But this isn't what we're talking about today. We're talking about all the easy gear to get from the Harpy. The Imperial Executioner is one of them. We've got 15% attack, 10% crit. Then if we have a 3-piece set, we're going to ignore 18% defense. We've got the Alabaster Knight 3-piece set. When our ultimate is fully charged, we get an additional 30% damage for 10 seconds. And this affects our ultimate as well. So when that ultimate fires off, we're going to get this 30% additional damage. The other one we have is Heart of the Gambler 3-piece set. When we're wearing this, we get a 30% chance to deal derivative damage, 5% of target's current max HP, up to 200% of our attack. And then the last one is just to get health back. The wearer gains healing by 40% attack when they launch a basic attack. So this one's pretty, if you need sustain, if you need to stay alive, I've got this down on my chart. I did test it out, but it's only if you need to stay alive. So I've got this chart over here with all the information, all the numbers, and we're going to talk about each of the heroes and the numbers I did. I did a lot of testing. It took quite a few hours to do all of this. We're going to do Asta, Sutha, and Erich. And I know a lot of this, you'd like to see the numbers as I talk about this, but unfortunately, I did so many hours of testing. It would be something cool to do on stream so you could see it all. But here, I can't just say, okay, we're working on Sutha now. Here are Sutha's numbers, and you see those numbers happen as I'm talking about it. I just can't do that. There's too much footage for me to go through, and I can just tell you the numbers, tell you what I went through, and these numbers are 100% legitimate. They do not lie, because there's no variation in damage in this game. If you have 100% crit rate, you're going to hit on that same skill or your basic ability for the same amount every hit. So there's no variation, unless your hero has some kind of variation where it's like a 50% chance to ignore 100% defense. Then we could have a variation in damage over 5 minutes. I also went and fought the Vortex boss, which is down below, to see if the damage was pretty much the same as this test dummy. And it is. It's like right on for this test dummy right now for the Vortex boss I'm on. But the Vortex boss changes, right? It gets harder and harder throughout the season. So I don't know. Just know that these numbers are accurate, and this shows you the depiction of the correct gear, the strongest gear out there to equip your team with. Starting from the top with Oster, this guy, whenever there's a frost up on the enemy, he shoots 2 additional frost arrows. That's a lot of damage going to the enemy, or actually a lot of hits going to the enemy, because those 2 additional frost arrows don't do a lot of damage. But when they're able to proc, that one proc where we can do that true damage, like I showed you in the beginning of this video, then they can do 10,000 damage instead of that normal 1,000 that they hit for, which is pretty nuts. That's why when you see his gear over here, in Heart of the Gambler for Auster, he's doing crazy amount of damage compared to all the rest. Now, I did realize as I was testing him out, he does have a skill ability that has a 50% chance to ignore 100% defense. So his tests are really variable. With something like Sutha, once I run her through, I could run her through 100 times, 5 minutes, same gear. It's going to be the same exact number because I have 100% chance to crit. But with him, they can vary a little bit. But looking at the gear up here, we have the Imperial Executioner where we're ignoring defense, which I don't think it's ignoring enough defense at 18%. I feel like it needs to be more, or we're not fighting bosses that have enough defense yet. And then this will come into play later on. But with the bosses and the enemies that we're fighting right now, the Vortex boss along with bosses in dungeons, I haven't seen the Imperial Executioner do that well. And then we come down here to a 2-piece set. So what if you want to play Imperial Executioner along with Wrath of the Trolls? You can see what the damage is for these 2-piece sets. Again, we got variation right here on this one, like a huge variation. I think with the 2,600,000, we ignored a lot of defense. But then you come down to the Heart of the Gambler, the one I was talking about where we get the procs, and it's just a crazy increase compared to all the rest. Then we've got Alabaster Knight coming in here with this 30% additional ultimate damage. So we get our ultimate fully charged, we get 30% additional damage on that ultimate, and then for all of our attacks for 10 seconds. And with him, I thought that would be cool because whenever he hits an enemy that has frost on, he gets additional charge of his ultimate to get there faster, like ultimate energy. So I was thinking this guy could, cycle through his ultimate faster. He'd have this up on him longer, 30% additional damage, and it would really bring the damage. Well, it really didn't bring the damage. I think the Alabaster Knight is really good for burst damage in PvP. If you've got a crazy ultimate that's going to do a lot of damage and you want to down somebody, you want to kill somebody, and you're not worried about the sustained damage like I'm testing right here for 5 minutes. You just want to blow somebody up. I think this is really good because 30% additional damage on your ultimate is huge. And then for 10 seconds following all those other attacks, this to me feels like it's definitely to down somebody in PvP. Get that burst in there. But as far as sustained, we're looking at Heart of the Gambler, 3-piece set, 100%. But if you have to go with a 2-piece set, look down here at Erich. I'm talking about, after I did Auster and I did Sutha, I was like, okay, these two are like really high single target damage dealers who have special abilities. Let's go to Erich and see what he can do because everybody's going to be able to get him for free in the game. But here's Sutha. Look at Sutha. She's got Heart of the Gambler, way more damage. We've got the Imperial Executioner ignoring defense, not that much. And then we got Alabaster with her. When she does her ultimate, she gets that additional damage. Well, she's doing big numbers. So I think that's why Alabaster did pretty decent. She's doing huge numbers on her attacks. Whenever she crits, she's got a 100% chance to crit. She's doing an additional attack. It's like that with all of her abilities. And I think that 30% additional damage for 10 seconds was helping her out, but nowhere near like Heart of the Gambler was with all those attacks. Then we come down to somebody like Erich. He's nothing special, right? He doesn't get all those additional attacks like those other two do, but still a really good unit. So with the Executioner ignoring defense, we got 1.8 million. With Wrath of the Trolls, with healing, that's on his basic attack. He's healing for 2,123 with this attack, and he only dealt 1.6 million. That's if you need sustain, it's good because we're dealing 1.6 million down here with just a 2-piece set, mix and match 2-piece set. So if you really want to get that additional healing from that basic ability of 2,123 based on your attack, it's a pretty good set. But Heart of the Gambler, again, it's crazy. On these bosses that have really high HP, this is a lot of damage. Do keep in mind though, once the boss gets down lower, I think it takes a while though. It's a percentage of their current HP, but I swear when I'm fighting bosses and I take them down to half life, I don't see the change from that max damage, like that 10,000 damage, until they're under 50% and going lower and lower. But regardless, it's a lot of damage. And as you can see here, it's a crazy amount of damage. But don't be too deceived because this damage will go down. Like that damage, as you saw on the boss, goes down over time as their HP gets lower. The HP doesn't get lower on the target dummy, so it's always the same amount on the target dummy. On the Vortex boss, I noticed it was the same amount of damage. It didn't change there as well. So really good for the Vortex boss, and I think really good for any boss in this game. It just hits too damn hard, even when it gets lower and lower because their HP is getting lower. Still, hits too damn hard. Alabaster Knight over here on our Erich, giving us that additional, what was it, 30% damage on our ultimate, and then 10 seconds after. Didn't really see a big variation in damage there, and I was running him with our little girl down here in the bottom right. So I was running him with her to get the wild proc more often so we could get his damage up. Just to get his damage up, no real reason. So maybe it gave us a little variation in damage there. The rest of them, we got Sutha here. The top left one, I've got Oster up there with an epic to make sure that we always have Frost up 100% of the time. And then you can see these damage numbers when I'm done doing the run, right? I just write down all the damage numbers. So everything is 100% accurate, but you let me know what you guys have experienced in the game so far. And if we were fighting something that does, like if the boss, the Vortex boss gets stronger, gets higher defense, then maybe this will catch up to Alabaster, giving us that 30% additional damage, as opposed to here we could get that 18% ignore defense. So ignoring defense, there's bosses that probably, what, Ancient Battlefield? Just because he's a dwarf, he has a shield, and he gets that increased defense proc on him. Maybe that would be a good place for me to test out this gear compared to other gear where I think somebody would have high defense is what I'm getting at. So we need to find out, like, who has the highest defense in the game? You know, where is this going to make a big difference? And will it make a big difference? Because even if we go fight the Ancient Battlefield, that dwarf gets his increased defense up on him. I try to take away the attack. I give him decreased attack. We just did a video on fighting him as free to play. Would this gear set do more damage and do enough damage to where it actually matters? Or are we better off just doing Heart of the Gambler and making sure with that huge HP pool that he has, we get that down as quick as possible, and then we keep chunking that down afterwards. I just think Heart of the Gambler is just too good right now. So you let me know your experience, take into consideration what I've got here and that you've tested things. Have you tested them? I've done this on the test server, obviously. So I've been able to level up a lot of gear. I've been able to spend a lot of time on the dummy and really test this out. Doesn't mean there isn't some cool hero out there with some nice abilities that work better with other sets. And that's what we need to know. We need to know what works the best, because right now, all I see is Heart of the Gambler. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I appreciate your time. Let me know down below. I'll see you all in a video soon.